So hi, Dr. John. This is my domain one reflection. Okay, first off, for domain one, what I actually did was to create a questionnaire generally for market study, and also question that we handed out questionnaires to people, specifically elderly people, and also to get them to fill up this form. And if they have any like questionnaires for to ask us, normally they will ask us. But then I feel like what are the challenges that I faced throughout this whole thing was generally because I am someone that usually don't speak a lot. Like I guess I can identify myself more as like an introvert, where people who I try not to have as much connection with people. So especially since I don't really have a lot of conversations going on with elderly people, since there is a huge gap between me and elderly people in terms of the age where we think differently. So I don't really generally talk to them that much. But I guess that's one of my major setbacks during this domain, where I have this fear of talking to old people, as I feel like I may not have the ability to actually like um, converse with them properly without feeling awkward and other things. But then in terms of solution wise, I think by mainly because of peer pressure, because my team usually have people like Joshua, where he's usually someone who is like he tries to push people a lot. In that sense, I feel like it's like a positive point from him, that he managed to peer pressure me to actually to start talking to old people. And at the same time, I'm also someone who is somewhat competitive, and because Joshua is like one of my good friends, along with other people like Lau and Darren. So I tend to think like, if they can do it, I can should be able to do it too. So that is one of the reasons of how I solve like this challenge of mine throughout this whole domain. I think another challenge that I also encountered is during the throughout the whole market research area during domain one. I feel that I think it's also my lack of like understanding on like the concept of like doing complete research, because like when over the past few semesters, I feel like almost of our research is generally more on like you just do regular research, but this one seems much more different compared to what I've been exposed to. So I feel like right now, since I have completed the other few domains as well, I understand this domain more than I did compared to last time when I first started. Okay, so for this domain, as usual, another round of questionnaire making again, but this time it's questionnaires that mainly revolves more around the consumer, where this includes like symbolic study, a purchasing study, and other things. So what technically happened after that is that after making the list of questionnaires itself, we had to so-called submit our slides itself. No, not really slides. We had to submit our so-called questionnaires for it to be checked, which later on our feedback wasn't really a proper feedback, but more of another sample for us to refer from this time, which technically got me to think more carefully about our questions, whether is it truly good or not, whether we are actually targeting the right people. But then after that, we actually a few days later, we our next class we went for a focus group study, which actually was conducted in a park. I think it was yeah, it's still close to Sunway area, but in that up in that park itself, we met like some old ladies who to me looks somewhat intimidating, because I feel like they just finished their dancing or their, I guess, qigong, which make them look as if they are very hungry and they're very impatient and they're all very reluctant to give us like proper answers or to even conduct this focus study with us. But then I guess I was somewhat scared a bit because at the same time the aunties were speaking quite intimidatingly, and I was also unlucky to be paired with one of those aunties where her main language is mainly more on like Chinese, which is not exactly my best language or my strongest suit. But I think with my basic level of like Chinese conversation skills, I think I was able to still get pretty decent good data at least. Then after we collected the data, we then proceeded with analyzing, where we had to transcribe the data first. So of all the different focus groups that we did, only this one was done conducted in like Mandarin, which transcribing it was pretty challenging itself because the on top of using like transcription websites or maybe even last resort of using Google Translate, a lot of the things were like pretty jumbled up, and to the point where I read it and I started laughing like a lot because it really doesn't make any sense. But then after that, I think I got my other teammates to help me to help to transcribe this data before I analyze it. Okay, after we analyzed the data itself, we then proceeded to do use NVivo to actually conduct the so-called analysis part itself, which I can see that my team, especially Joshua, was especially confused as in this department. So I kind of took over the analysis and information gathering from this part itself. I think all in all, if we were to think of how challenging this domain is, um, on a scale of 1 to 10, I think probably 7 for me. Because one of it is because I'm quite unfamiliar with the NVivo app for transcription, and that also my next thing is that my communication skills ain't really that the best ever. So maybe in terms of like improvement wise, I think all I just have to do is probably learn how to speak more languages. uh, and also maybe the questions for the questionnaire can be more of a like in a broader spectrum and more generalized that people can tend to talk more. Okay, so for next, we did domain three, which to me was one of the most challenging domains that I have done so far. So what we actually first started with was a short 4 hour session of what's it called, workshop that we did with Dr. Chong and the rest of the class, where we split into different groups that were not initially our own groups, and we went through different activities like what are our first impressions on this particular thing, this food product, and then it slowly on and on we slowly got to know how to ideate and come up with an actual product. Okay, so after the ideation workshop itself, we were then told to do a short reflection, and where we start to write down like what stuff that we feel like we learn and other stuff. Then this was followed by our own group ideation of how we plan on producing our own ingredients into the product. So what are my ingredient was cholera barbaris, and we were planning to use this item inside our food product. So we first came up with like possible problems that elderly people went through. What sort of problems do they have? Why do they have this problem? And what sort of nutrients can we get to solve the potential problems that elderly people generally have? I also remember that during this whole process of ideation, we managed to stay back in school all the way until 10 p.m. or even more. I think 11 p.m. before we actually left and went back home. And I think that this moment specifically that we stayed until so late was also one of the main reasons that got my team to be much closer, because there was a lot of like weird things happening. I think we all kind of went crazy afterwards, which was kind of funny, and there was a lot of like funny doodling between all of us, and I can say that we had a lot of fun doing it. After that, it was one of my most stress part of the whole of domain three, which was the presentation where we have to present all 10 of our concepts itself in front of everyone, and they had the rights to just keep judging every single thing that we're reading. Um, then after suffering for 4 hours straight, yeah, I mentioned that as suffering because it felt like it at least. But at least I get to give the same remarks for the same ideas for the other two groups as well. So after that, we came up with more amendments itself on the idea of how to come up with these products. So after we conducted our ideation process, it is now done to do a feasibility study. So what we technically did for feasibility study is to check on the overall success rate of each individual concept that we have done to see whether this product is workable or not. In this process through this whole process of doing the feasibility study, I think it wasn't really as much of a problem compared to the other few domains, as this one is more mainly based on research and understanding of the overall product or not. But then in terms of challenges wise, I think for this particular study itself involves concept challenges and formulation challenges. I think at the start when we were given like a short briefing on how to do it, I was fairly quite confused because I didn't really understand the main difference between it. But then after looking it through for quite a bit, I think I finally grasped the real meaning of it and managed to do it well enough with the help of a lecturer and the rest of my team to give me proper definition throughout the whole process. Okay, next up is domain 5, where we were supposed to conduct our consumer acceptance study after coming up with our 3 alpha concepts itself. So what we did was to thankfully tell the consumers what our product is and ask them 6 different questions on what they think about the product, whether do they mainly specify on something or is there any improvement on it. But then after that, because we didn't really have that much time to fully analyze it, we just took it as a form of feedback so that we can think about our product just right before our beta concept. Okay, finally, last but not least was the beta presentation, that the moment that every single prep we have been doing from domain 1 to domain 5 finally rests for this particular presentation itself. Honestly, if I was to say, I was very, very nervous, but somehow excited to be able to present and finally get this out of the way. So with that said, there was also a lot of like last minute preps and so-called dry runs that we had to do. And finally, the moment that we've all been waiting for is the moment when the two judges came in and we had a few minutes of like prep and introduction before we were actually the first group to present. Overall, I think the presentation was pretty decent, but one of our main problems was that we didn't really um, catch the attention of our so-called judges, which was one of the reasons why I'm kind of disappointed about. But I guess I can say that there's no point really crying over spilled milk or something, but there's another part of FYP that is going to happen in a like few months time, so hopefully everything goes well there, and I guess we ended it still in a good note lah. Right. Then I guess that's about it. Thanks again, Dr. Chong, for all the help throughout this semester, and I'll see you again next semester. Bye bye.